Hey Candace, George here. Just on a walkabout, my usual daily walkabout, and I thought I'd just stop here and take a moment to show you some of the things that I do when I camp. I am no knot expert. I am not a bushcrafter or anything like that. I'm a novice, and some of you have probably seen my website, The Novice Survivalist. And I learn. I watch what other people do, and I see what they say and how they go about doing their camping and that sort of thing. And from that, I choose parts that I think would work for me. So that's what I do. And I thought I would like to share some of those things with you. And I'm probably going to do a couple of short videos of how I camp, what I take with me, whether it's hammock camping, tent camping, my kitchen, what I sleep in, clothing, food, things like that. So they're going to be really short videos, just a series on, I think I'll just do a little series on that. But the first one I wanted to talk about was, because we had just tried out, I just did a video on a tarp. I wanted to show you how I try to avoid knots. It does require some knots, obviously, but I found that if I, instead of using really good knots to hold things like my ridge line, my canopy, the tarp, that sort of thing, up, I try to avoid knots because I really struggle getting them undone afterwards, especially if, for example, it rains or something like that. They really get tired, and it makes it extremely difficult to get undone. And I've been trying to find ways to avoid that. So I thought I'd just cover that some with you. So let's have a look at that. The first one is, I love this knot. It's a prusset. It's very easy to do, and it works perfectly for hanging my tarp. Now, it does require a tarp to have tie-off points on it. My latest tarp, the DD Canopy tarp 3x3 that I just recently got, has 19 tie points on it. So you can use it in a lot of different combinations. And with that, I use the prusset a lot to tighten it up and hang it on a ridge line. So let's have a look at that first. A quick look at how to do a prusset. Stay with me. Thanks. So what I want to show you here is the prusset knot. And what I've done is I've got two pieces of 550 cord, and I just laid this across the table here, kind of snug on one side and loose on the other. And I'm going to use this as an example of a ridge line. In order to do a prusset knot, you need obviously some cord, and I'm using 550 here. I used a different color, so hopefully we'll be able to see a little bit better. But what you're going to do is double it over. By the way, when you use 550, I always make a point, if you cut it, to just heat up the ends here, and then it stops it from fraying and that sort of thing. So there you go. So here's my ridge line, and I've doubled over the cord. And what you're doing is you're going to take this loop, and you're going to pass through the loop all of the two ends. So what you're going to do is you pass it through once, you can see there, and then do it again. So you go through twice, and when you pull it tight and you tidy it up a little bit, you get something that looks sort of, I like a nice tidy knot, and hopefully it'll allow you to see a little bit better, is you get that. And if you look at it on that side and on that side, so you can see it as, and the nice thing about this knot is I'm going to give it a good tug directly down. I'm pulling down on it, and it's pretty snug on there. The nice thing about it is it slides. I can slide it back and forth, no problem. However, if I pull tight on it and I pull this hanging piece to the side, it locks up didn't come up very well there because I don't have it tight enough. It locks up pretty well, and when you pull on the side, look there, it won't slide. I'm giving it a good solid tug, and it takes quite a lot to get it to move. The advantage to this is you can put this on your ridge line, tie this to a tie-off point on your tarp, and then have it loose. Once you have your tarp all set up and hanging from your ridge line, you can pull it taut by pulling on the side. Here's the edge of the tarp, and when I get there and I pull, it'll stay taut, and the ridge line stays taut, and so does the prusset knot. And you can see I'm pulling on it and it doesn't slide. That allows me to pull my tarp nice and taut. And if you want to see what I mean, I have a video up on the DD 3x3 tarp. Well, it's coming up soon, and you can see what I mean about pulling the tarp nice and taut across your ridge line. Great little knot. It's the prusset knot, and it works a wonder. So that's one knot that I use. Pulling it apart, I can just loosen it and it comes right off. Great knot, easy to use and easy to get off. And that's my point. So that's one knot that I use. One thing I forgot to mention about the prusset knot is that the way I use it is I made up a whole bunch of these little pieces of 550 cord tied off at the ends, doubled over. They're about 6 inches, and what I normally do is I then take the tied off ends and tie them off again together, just like that, and then I tie my prusset knot. The reason I do that is when I hang my tops, I don't tie this to the tie-off on the top. I use a toggle, just a piece of wood. You can use any piece of wood, but I made up some little pieces of toggles out of wood that I carved up, and I was bored. And I kept a whole bunch of them so that I could use them on my top. And that's what I want to show you now, the way I put it on my top using that toggle and attaching the toggle to the top. So when I do the prusset knot, I want to use this as this end, that which is the opposite end that I showed you on, and I use this end here to go through and again and pull it tight, and it doesn't make it look any prettier because you have that tie off end. So now I have my prusset there, and as you can see, here's the tied ends, and the other loop here is a nice clean bend. The reason I do that is when I put the toggle in, I don't want the knot in the way. It just is a lot cleaner. So then what I do is I take, here I'm going to use this as my top tie-off point, and I would take the prusset, whoops, tighten that up, George. So my prusset is like this now, and here is my top tie-off end. I put that through the loop in the prusset knot. I put a toggle in there, and then when I pull it tight, there is my tie-off. To take it undone, all I have to do is slide my prusset, which loosens the toggle, pull the toggle out, and it comes off. I actually leave these on my ridge line. So there you go. I wanted to show you that again. I just grabbed a piece of stick here, and here is the end of my prusset. I'm going to say the prusset is actually attached to the ridge line, and here is my tie off on my top. So I put the top tie off through, get the stick, put it in the loop of the tie off, and when I pull the prusset knot tight, there you go. It doesn't come undone. Then to undo it and take it all apart, I pull the prusset knot, it loosens off, pull the toggle out, comes apart. Very easy, nice easy way to do it, a lot less knots and things like that, and that's just the way I prefer it. Okay, so you saw the prusset knot. So what I want to show you now is on my ridge line that I use to hang my tarps. I have a long piece of 550 cord that goes between the trees. I find 2 trees that match and work with what I want. And I'm going to put up my ridge line. I need it to be taut. It needs to be pretty tight across there. You don't want a sagging ridge line or anything like that. So you want it as tight as you can get it. What I always do with my 550 cord, if I cut it, I do the end and I tie a little knot in it. Now all I'm going to do is on one side of my ridge line is I just do a very basic overhand knot. I double up and just twist it around, push it through, and here you can see, whoops, I have my knot and the bugs are getting to me. I put a little loop on the end, and it's a very basic knot, and I leave this in there. Once I've tied this, it stays on my ridge line. I never take it off, always stays there. Now the point of this is when I use the ridge line, I don't have to tie a knot on one side of one tree. This is the starting point for my ridge line, and what I'm doing is I take my ridge line, the other end of my ridge line, and here's my tree. I'm using this as an example. Obviously think of it standing up like this. If you're wondering about this piece of wood, it was a staff I was trying to carve and I broke it. It's just lying here, it's been here for days. But anyway, so what I do is, here's my tree. Obviously it's a lot thicker than this. I have a much thicker tree, but I'm using this as an example. I put it around and I pull my ridge line through that little loop, just like that. Oh, and pull it tight. You can see there how tight it is on there. And when you do this on a tree, as soon as you do this, it's not going to work very well on this one because I took the bark off. But when you have the bark on a tree and you pull this tight, it will stay taut. Even if it gets a little loose, when you get to the other end and you tie your ridge line, it's going to be nice and tight. It's not going anywhere. And it's a strong enough knot and loop that it's going to hold. So that would be the beginning side, the one side of my ridge line. The other side is a different story. And, you know, like I said, I do try to avoid knots. The way I try to do it on the other side is like this. Okay, so we have the one side of the ridge line done by just looping it through the end loop on the ridge line. Here is my other side, and this I'm using as my other tree that I'm tying off to. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my ridge line, pass it through around the tree, go over itself, and pull back on it. And what that does is when I pull back on it, it really puts a lot of tension. I'm going to come back around, and then what I do is I take this end and I double it over like this. I double it over. I go over and through with that loop and pull it tight. Okay. I believe that's a half hitch, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take that loop through itself and pull on it. And as you can see, I'm pushing as hard as I can, and I've got a good solid knot there. That's how I tie off my ridge line. It's tight. So that's how I do my ridge line. On that, I hang my prusset knots. So putting the prusset knot on, I'll do one very quickly here so you can see. Through itself once and come around, and do it again, and through that loop again, and try and make it look decent. There's my prusset on there. I've got it tight and I'm pulling down on it, but I can slide my prusset knot. But if I pull to the side, my prusset doesn't move. So there you have it. Those knots are basically just about all that I use. And you say, well, George, that's really ugly, but it works for me. And the nice thing about it is it doesn't take much to get undone. Because of this double loop, I can just pull on one of the loops and it pulls through itself really easy. And I'm done. That's how I do my ridge line. I'm no expert, but that works for me, and that's how I do my ridge line when I'm using a top or anything else that I'm stringing across two trees or anything like that. So there you go. The knots I use when I'm using a ridge line, camping, or when I hang something between two trees. That's how I get these nice and taut. And then of course the prusset to hang things from. Hope that helps somebody. That's what I do. I found it very easy because I'm horrible at remembering knots. But those are the ones that I use. So it's a prusset and really 2 half hitches with a double rope. What it's called, if there's a real name for it, I'm not sure, but anyway, there you have it. So there you go. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Always appreciate you watching, and I'll come up with some other videos for you, some quick ones that aren't going to take forever. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Just saying. Bye.